The courtroom was tense even before the tape began. It was day 18 of the trial. People had started treating the daily proceedings like a grim routine. Reporters sipping cold coffee, courtroom sketch artists shading familiar faces from new angles, and legal analysts whispering predictions that no longer held much weight. By 8:52 a.m., the press section was full. Familiar names from the legal media world. The New York Times, CNN, Rolling Stone, Law and Crime were all present. Some reporters were live streaming on X, formerly Twitter, others refreshing court logs in real time. Everyone knew today wasn't just another day. At 9:03 a.m., Judge Harrison Trent entered courtroom 4C. He offered no expression, just a curt nod. In legal circles, Trent was known for his brevity and icy discipline. He had no fondness for the press, no tolerance for fabricated testimony, and above all, he wasn't easily fooled by theatricality. At 9:05 a.m., the prosecution requested to submit an 11-minute audio recording extracted from a device listed as evidence item number 38, decrypted and voice verified by the FBI. The judge glanced toward the defense table where the attorneys representing Sean P. Diddy Combs sat, then gave a silent nod. And suddenly, the room was consumed by a different kind of silence. Not the orderly quiet of a courtroom in session, but the stillness of something suspended breath movement thought. A faint, distorted click, then a short, muffled laugh, and then a man's voice emerged. Low, clear, unshaken. Don't ask questions, just watch. If they panic, shut it down. No introductions, no concern for who might be listening. The sentence sliced through the decades-long veil that had shrouded the entertainment industry. Next to Diddy on the recording was another voice. Higher pitched, almost a whisper at times. She didn't say no. That's enough, right? At first, no one dared confirm it. But when the voice casually called out Rob, warm, familiar, there was no room for doubt. It was R. Kelly. The recording continued. The sound of glasses clinking, a soft, distant instrumental, an unreleased track, perhaps. Then a pause, followed by a chilling exchange. Kelly, they come here for the show. Diddy, no. They come here because we let them think it's a show. Kelly chuckles. Either way, they don't leave. Diddy. You know the rule. New faces don't get to leave. Not right away. No shouting, no overt threats. But the calmness, the control in their voices, that's what made it terrifying. 9:11 a.m. One of the reporters from Vanity Fair, a journalist known for her composure during high-profile trials, set her pen down. She didn't write another word. Instead, she looked up at Diddy. He sat motionless, wearing dark sunglasses, unreadable, as if he were listening to an unfinished demo rather than evidence that could alter the course of his life. 9:14 a.m. A female juror, likely in her early 40s, raised her hand to her mouth, not out of shock but to stifle the sound of quiet sobbing. This was no longer a trial. It was a diagnosis, a dissection. 9:16 a.m. The prosecution didn't offer commentary. They didn't need to. Every word on the tape had already become its own indictment. And when Diddy's voice echoed one final time just before the recording ended, it carried no direct threat. But it did carry something else, a cold understanding. What they remember doesn't matter. What they can prove, that's the game. The recording cut off. There was no applause, no murmurs, just a stretch of silence that lasted over 60 seconds, long enough for everyone in the room to understand there are some things once heard that cannot be unheard. 9:18 a.m. A defense attorney glanced down at his own trembling hands. A witness seated behind the gallery, silent for 10 years, bit her lip so hard it bled. The FBI agent leaned in toward the lead prosecutor. No microphone, no sidebar, just a quiet exchange of words. They knew with this tape the trajectory of the case had shifted, but in truth this was only the beginning, because what made the recording horrifying wasn't just what it contained, It was what it confirmed the testimonies once dismissed as fantasy gold-digging scandal, chasing the ones pushed aside, doubted, mocked, had just been given irrefutable context. The 11-minute recording was not just damning. It redrew the entire map of power in the American entertainment industry. At its center were two men, one once labeled an icon, the other a legend, and orbiting them dozens of names. People who had heard, who had seen, and who had chosen silence. 9:21 a.m. Judge Trent looked up, his voice measured and without inflection. Let the record show the recording has been played. No one said a word. Just minutes earlier, the courtroom had been murmuring about gaps in witness statements, about the credibility of testimonies, about possible financial motives. Now, only one question hovered in the air. If this is true, how much more is still hidden? The prosecution concluded the morning's presentation with just one line: "Your Honor, the government rests for now." And the trial continued. But it would never be the same. Because after that tape, the courtroom had crossed into a different realm, one where truth didn't need to shout. It just needed to be played. If hip-hop was a kingdom of both spotlight and shadows, then for nearly 3 decades, Sean P. Diddy Combs and Robert R. Kelly were two of its most untouchable kings, building castles, yes, but also shaping the terrain that surrounded them. One hailed from Harlem, rising during the golden age of East Coast hip-hop. The other was born in Chicago's South Side, where gospel, R&B, and soul merged into the haunting voice the world would come to know as the king of R&B. On the surface, they seemed like opposites. Diddy, the savvy mogul, the producer with the Midas touch, a master of media manipulation. Kelly, the untrained genius, emotionally volatile dyslexic, yet capable of composing chart-topping ballads from a single hum in the studio. But their true danger did not lie in music. It lay in what both men understood instinctively, the unwritten rule of American entertainment, that silence can be as powerful as fame. According to FBI and federal prosecution records presented in court between 2006 and 2014, Diddy and R. Kelly appeared together at no fewer than 17 private events, none of which were documented by press or social media. These gatherings, referred to internally as after hours, were hosted in penthouse suites, rented mansions, or private yachts. No paparazzi, no journalists, no regular security, only trusted circles. And one core rule: those who enter stay in, those who leave don't talk. A former assistant whose identity remains sealed testified to having attended at least 6 of these events. She described, "They didn't need to say anything. Diddy would scan the room, what girls were wearing, who they came with. Then he'd nod or shake his head. That was it. Life or death decisions literally for the girls brought in from who knows where. Guest lists weren't emailed. They were handwritten and passed through Tier 2 assistants. Phones were confiscated in the lobby. Surveillance cameras were disabled after 11 p.m. under privacy request. Entertainment VIP. There were few official recordings or collaborations between Diddy and R. Kelly. Outside of a handful of remixes and joint appearances at award shows like the BETs or MTV VMAs, they rarely shared a public stage. But in federal investigative files, their relationship was not assessed in artistic terms, but as a system of operations. A 2021 internal FBI report stated after-hours events exhibit signs of coordination through a network of high-profile figures in the music industry. Among them, S. Combs and R. Kelly appear multiple times, not solely as attendees. An attached memo outlined roles within the structure of these parties: transportation gatekeepers, new guest handlers, response loggers. Diddy and Kelly's names were listed under oversight, those responsible for observing and deciding who returned next time. One leaked internal recording, still under authentication, allegedly captured R. Kelly saying, "You brought 5. I'm keeping 2. Don't bring me no Instagram clout chasers again. This is real deal." The question that echoed through the press and public was simple: why didn't anyone ever speak up? And the answer, as one former bodyguard who worked for Diddy between 2009 and 2013 put it, was brutally clear. They didn't have names. They were called Friday Batch or Tuesday Crew. No one recorded who they were, and when they left, if they left, they had no proof. Another witness, a female stylist who once worked with Kelly, testified before the grand jury that many girls were transported in rental vehicles with fake license plates. They were required to sign confidentiality slips at the entrance, no reading, no explanation. A leaked NDA non-disclosure agreement showed a chilling clause. Participant is not permitted to mention any activity occurring after 10:30 p.m. without written approval from the host organization's legal representative. Human rights attorney Joanna Francis, who has defended victims in multiple entertainment-related abuse cases, stated, "This is how power replicates. Someone like Diddy or Kelly, no matter how monstrous, can't sustain this kind of control without enablers, assistants, lawyers, stylists, bodyguards, even reporters. The silence of those who were just doing their job is what turns personal misconduct into institutional machinery." One of the key witnesses scheduled to testify the following week was George Kaplan, a former sound technician for Diddy between 2010-2015. According to the indictment, Kaplan was ordered to disable all recording devices after midnight during after-hours events at the Standard Hotel in Los Angeles. In leaked deposition transcripts, Kaplan stated, "One night I turned the mic back on just for 5 minutes to check the echo levels. Right after I got called outside and was told I'd never work in another New York studio again. I got the message." The next question came naturally. Why didn't the hotels report any of this? An anonymous hotel manager explained. It's simple. When a penthouse suite is booked for 3 nights at over $100,000 with a request to disable cameras and sign liability waivers, you don't ask questions, you serve. In the American entertainment industry, Diddy and R. Kelly were once untouchable. One controlled the media ecosystem from Bad Boy Records to Revolt TV. The other commanded a fan base across the southern U.S., particularly within black religious communities where his music was once considered almost sacred. An anonymous producer put it bluntly, "When Kelly fell, people said it was the fall of a sexual predator." But Diddy's different. He didn't just make music, he made the environment. And what's scarier is that Kelly was just one of many who passed through that environment. Diddy and Kelly weren't best friends. They didn't do joint mixtapes. They didn't tour together. But what they shared was a model of control, an ecosystem built on silence, compliance, and power masked by fame. Among thousands of pages of court documents, dozens of testimonies, and a decade's worth of allegations, the 11-minute recording played in federal court was not an accidental discovery. It all started with an unrelated arrest. In July 2023, a man named Andre S., a former tech assistant for R. Kelly between 2009-2015, was arrested in Miami for money laundering and tax evasion. During a search of his property, the FBI seized several electronic devices, including an old battery-dead BlackBerry phone from 2010. No one suspected that this obsolete piece of tech would contain one of the most critical pieces of evidence in the trial of the decade. Initially, the phone wouldn't power on. It was encrypted using AES-256 military-grade software typically seen in defense systems or sophisticated criminal networks, immediately raising red flags at the FBI. After nearly 8 months of work with assistance from the Federal Technical Analysis Center, FTAC investigators cracked a hidden storage partition. Inside was a single folder labeled "No timestamps," no metadata, no categories, just 3 audio files. One lasted 6 minutes, one 13 minutes, and one 11 minutes and 2 seconds marked only as Room 1402, JPN. It was this final file, once voice-matched and verified by forensic audio analysts, that would pivot the entire investigation. On November 7, 2012, the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, hosted a closed-door charity event in Tokyo, raising funds for Syrian children. The event was small, lightly covered by press, and attended mostly by international artists and elite donors. Diddy was among the listed honorary patrons. R. Kelly performed free of charge under the banner of global peace through music. According to hotel records, both men stayed in the top-floor VIP suites of the Ritz-Carlton Tokyo in adjoining rooms 1402, 1403. The security camera feeds for the 53rd floor hallway were not retained reportedly due to a privacy request by VIP clients. It was in room 1402 that the now infamous tape was made captured by a hidden recording device inside Andre S.'s briefcase. In later testimony, Andre claimed he made the recording as self-protection because I was starting to feel unsafe. I was seeing things that no one could explain and no one wanted explained. When the tape was played in court, there were no screams, no crying women, just a conversation between two men. And that precisely was what chilled the courtroom. R. Kelly, I told her it's just a show. You told me they want in, show them the price. You were right. Diddy. If they leave, they talk. You don't let them leave. Kelly. She hesitated. I thought of letting her go. Diddy. You let one go, you lose 10. Memory spreads fast. For 11 minutes, they talked about pricing loyalty, managing victim response, and conditions for return. There were no raised voices, no conflict. Only coaching, like two executives exchanging strategies on customer retention. And that, many said, was the most terrifying part. The prosecution didn't need to spell it out. This is criminal. They simply framed it. The voices independently verified by forensic experts. The timestamp matched hotel records. The details aligned with victim testimonies spanning a decade. Federal prosecutor Marissa Blake told the court in a closed hearing, "We don't call this tape a smoking gun. We call it a map. It outlines an entire structure of control, how high-level individuals coordinate abuse, and most critically, how they talk when they think no one's listening." To the public, it was a gut punch, because the recording wasn't just evidence, it was an unforced confession, a confession no one had demanded, one that confirmed everything survivors had been told to doubt. In the days following the court's playback, more witnesses came forward. One former bodyguard of R. Kelly emailed the FBI. "If the tape's out, I have more, and I'm ready." A former Ritz-Carlton employee who had refused press interviews agreed to testify about the special service requests the night the recording was made. As for Andre S., the man who unknowingly unlocked the entire case, he is now under federal witness protection. He has offered no public statement. But his act delivered a single irrefutable message. After this recording, everything changed. There were no more questions about unprovable accusations. No more doubts about whether she was telling the truth. And most importantly, no more fear that the public would turn against the survivors. Because for the first time, silence, the very tool that shielded this system, was dismantled by sound. 2 days later, Monica R., a former assistant to Diddy between 2008-2012, stepped forward. She had testified under the alias M.A., avoiding cameras, refusing press. But this time, she stood in front of PBS cameras unmasked. In a live interview, she said, "I was in that room. I know the tape is real because I was the one they called in right after the words, 'Show her the price.'" Her voice didn't shake, but her eyes revealed something deeper than fear, exhaustion from more than a decade of silence. She hadn't kept quiet out of loyalty or greed. She had stayed silent because every time she tried to speak, she heard the same warnings. "Who's going to believe you? It's just part of your job. Stay quiet, and you'll still have a future." But now others followed. A female dancer from Kelly's 2010 tour. "They chose me for a private performance in a hotel suite. I thought it was an honor. Now I know it was a pattern. A male stylist for bad boy entertainment. I saw a girl locked in a dressing room for 6 hours. When I asked, they told me, 'Not your concern.' A hotel employee in Beverly Hills, I had to sign a document stating, 'No incidents, no guest complaints.' even though I heard screaming all night. They didn't speak for revenge or fame. They spoke because the tape had finally confirmed what they'd been gaslit into, forgetting that what they remembered was real.